Okay, so painting update after. Okay, so for reference, this guy. I think I've shown him in another video. He took about 6 hours to paint. Granted, I didn't prime him, so I had to do 2 or 3 layers of paint just to get the paint to stick. But then took about 6 hours to paint, give or take. And he doesn't look bad, but he doesn't look great. Meanwhile, this guy, not done yet, but he took me 1 hour, and he looks like this. Abaddon Black for the cloak, Wraithbone for the bone parts, Nagaroth Knight, I think, is the purple color that I used for his headband. Let me grab the pot. This is I did for his little face covering for the band over his eyes. Rune Lord Brass for the chain links and the trim on his cloak. Lead Belcher for his weapon. And I mixed Corax White and Abaddon Black in about 50-50 to make that gravestone, because somehow, buying all of this paint, I forgot to get a black. Or a brown, I can't speak, a gray. I have this texture paint that is gray, which I used on the base, and you can see it adds quite a bit of texture, which is a good thing when you're trying to do the base, but not a good thing when you're trying to do a smooth-ish gravestone. So, no. I have this gray, which is Lead Belcher and is metallic. I have this gray, which is also metallic, Rune Fang Steel. And then I have this gray, which is also metallic and is a dry brushing compound. So, I don't have a gray. Not a regular gray. So I had to mix it. And I'm so angry because when I went to the store to buy paint, I'm going to buy gray paint, because I didn't have gray paint, and it was a pain to always have to mix the right shade. And then I forgot to buy gray paint, so I had to mix the black and white, and I feel like an idiot. That's the only reason I'm upset. They mixed very well. That's on my wet palette. The wet palette, also, Army Paints or wet palette, would recommend. Everyone always says thin your paints if you're using the wet palette right, which I am not half the time, but I think I am today, mostly. This part's curling up, and it's making me upset. It'll thin your paints. Just a little, which is all that they need, it seems to me. Personally, I like the way that it worked when I took a little bit. Let me open one of these. It takes both hands because they don't want to open. Because it gets stuck. There we go. So this is my purple. And what I did with this purple is I opened it up. And I'm not going to actually do it because I don't want to waste paint. But I took my paintbrush. I took my little paintbrush, one of those two. Depending on how much paint I needed. For the purple, I used the little one. And I just dipped it into that little lip there, right in the center of frame. I dipped it in that, and I smudged it on my palette, and then I close this up nice and tight, because I've heard that Citadel pots don't like to close. So I closed it up nice and tight, and I actually shook it to make sure that it was tight so the paint wouldn't spill. And then I spread it out on my wet palette just a little bit, so it would get a little bit wet, and then I used it. And it worked great. It wasn't globby. It was very smooth. It went on easily. It went on evenly. If everything behaved exactly the way you want paint to behave. There's a fly. Wants my paint. And it looks pretty good. So if you want to see my setup, I'm left-handed, so my palette's on my left side. I am 100% left-handed. I can't do anything on my right side. So on my right side, I have this little paper towel I've been using to clean up mess paint that I spilled or that I got on my hand, so I didn't accidentally transfer it to anything. I got my little light in case I need a directional light, which I haven't needed because I have a lamp there. My tablet for YouTube, my drink. Don't judge my flavor choices. And then here's my other tools over here. Got my basing compounds over there because I don't need them right now. I'll probably move them over. And then all my paints that I've used up here, and then some of these that I took out to show what I want to do, like this thing. I want to take this. Once this is dry and done, I want to finish the model. And then I want to take a little bit. And as a test, I'm just going to use it on the little tip right there. Just on the little tip of that little wisp of cloak. Just right there to see if it'll make it look the way I want it to. I want it to make it look like a little bit of an ethereal glow. I'm hoping that that's what it'll make it look like. That's what they said it would make it look like, but they also said to use it on a light color. So this is black, and I'm hoping it'll show up just vaguely green. Just a little bit green. I don't want it to actually look like that, because I don't like that color. But I like that color when you mix it with darker colors or other colors. So hopefully it looks good. I could probably also, if it is as transparent as I hope it is, then you could probably put it over some blue and get a nice little greenish blue color, which I would like a lot more. I like darker colors more than lighter colors. This is not my favorite color. This likes to separate into a yellow, like a transparent yellow, and then the green pigment on the bottom, and you gotta shake it quite a bit for it to mix. But once it's mixed, it looks like that. So I haven't used this yet, but I plan on it. I haven't used these yet either, but I want to do blood, and I don't know which one's going to look good for blood, because the way I did blood on this guy was I took a red, a solid red, probably this one, just a darkish red. I took mostly red, like a nice sizable glob of red, threw it on my palette, and then I took a little bit of purple, just a little dash of purple, mix that in, and then a little slightly larger dash, if I can find my brown, of brown, just a little slightly larger than the purple dash of brown. The purple, when you mix it with red, gives it that red purple mix, but when you mix the red purple with brown, it looks like blood, because blood, when it oxidizes, it gets that little tint of blue, but since it's mostly red, it looks purple. So the purple, you got to use a dark purple for that. It darkens it up, and it makes it look like oxidized blood. And then you mix the brown with it, and the brown makes it look like dried blood. And you mix those together, and it looks like not quite fresh, but not completely dry blood. Because completely dry blood is pretty much a dark brown, almost black. And that doesn't seem appealing to put on a model like that, because then people will be like, why is there black ooze on his weapon? But if you mix it with the red, then people can be like, oh, it's blood. So it looks pretty good. That's also how you make fake blood, is if you want to make realistic looking fake blood, you take corn syrup and red food coloring, and you mix a little bit of brown. Little brown food coloring. Looks great. Looks like real blood. There's a specific mix. I've never personally done it. I only know that because I do magic sometimes, and I've looked into psychic surgery, and Brian Brushwood gave his fake blood thing, and that's what it looked like. And I used that as a base for my paint fake blood, and it works. So stuff like that transfers over. Information like that will transfer over, which is good to know. I learned that with my other experiments. So I'm probably gonna find some weird mixtures of paint I can do for different effects, or just find different paints I could buy to achieve the same effect. I looked at Citadel's blood paint, and I didn't like the way that it looked on their models, so I don't think I'll like the way it looks on my model either. But I know how to mix paint to look like blood, and it doesn't look bad. And the cool thing is, if you add too much brown, you can just put a little bit of red and it'll fix it. Ask me how I know. But I'm hoping to do a couple more experiments with the Citadel paints on this guy, and I'll leave this guy for now for a comparison. I'll probably go back over him, because you can see his bone parts are significantly brighter than his bone parts. I'll probably have to go over that. However, the blacks are pretty much the same. It's black paint. I know there's different shades of black, but they look pretty good. He looks different because I did some dry brushing over him. I'll probably go back over it with black, probably with this black. I don't know how well this black will stick to that paint, but I think it'll be okay. Not much of the detail is obscured by paint, so it'll be okay. Plus, it's a very smooth, mostly smooth area, so I think it'll be okay to just put it over it without stripping him. I don't want to strip him, but I think it'll look good. And I think I can do a lot more detail now with these Citadel paints because it behaves so much better. It's night and day to me, having used all-purpose acrylic paint, because these are acrylic. Like they're I wasn't horribly wrong in my thinking, but the pigment I believe is smaller, so it sticks to the model better, and it doesn't obscure as much detail, and it's not as thick, and all these other things that make it appealing. But it's made for these guys, so it works. And seriously, the difference is night and day. So if you're not into the hobby, pick up Citadel paints just right off the bat. Don't bother. I know it's cheaper. Don't get the all-purpose like I did. It will waste your time, and it will make you feel bad when you switch over. So I feel stupid for not just doing this right off the bat, but I was poor. So this looks great, and I will update more as I progress in making more models. And I'm loving this wet palette. It's great. I love it. But that's probably a video for another day. I'll probably just do a whole review of that. I'll probably do a review of all of these just because I'm bored. This looks great. Everything looks great. I feel dumb not using these right off the bat, and I love the way they're making things look, and I'm loving how easy they're making everything. So I will post more updates in the future. Thank you for following my Warhammer journey, and I will see you later.